So I'm at the Southern Fried Game Room Expo in Atlanta, Georgia. And to continue with my discussion of food in the intros of the show, I was given this beautiful little gift basket full of treats for my participation here at the Southern Fried Game Room Expo. I won't go through the entire contents of the basket, but just know that when I first got the basket, there were 2 moon pies in this basket, which are the original marshmallow sandwich, a double-decker chocolate moon pie. They are 300 calories each, and when I saw these, I thought, well, I'm not going to eat those. That was yesterday. Today, I have 0 moon pies remaining here on Coast to Coast Pinball. Episode 174, talking about the Southern Fried Game Room Expo and the fact that I ate 2 moon pies. Let's go. Welcome to Coast to Coast Pinballs. I hit my microphone really hard. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast. It's a commentary. I'm a man on free play all weekend long. That's right. Southern Fried Game Room Expo is wrapping up tomorrow. I have been through 2 days of the Southern Fried Game Room Expo. I must fly home Sunday morning to my beautiful wife and lovely little grumpy old man dog. What a great time. I was not going to record the show tonight. It's late. It's past midnight. We're coming to you not live from the Marriott Century Center north of Atlanta, Georgia here on Saturday night, June 20th, 2015. Was not going to record the show. I was going to go to bed. I have a flight that boards. My phone will tell me my flight boards in 7 hours and 18 minutes. I should go to sleep, but I'm not. Because I was taking a shower, thinking about the last couple days, and just, I feel great about pinball and the hobby, I guess. And I love pinball. You love pinball. If you're listening to the show, you love pinball. But I gotta say, in trying to think about what my take on the show was going to be, and if you don't know what this show is, this is a show about gaming, about pinball, about arcade gaming, about retro gaming, console gaming. I think there was some tabletop gaming going on. There may have been some poker games breaking out with a pool. I'm not totally sure. But this is a gaming expo, and is put on by the members of the Game Room Junkies, Preston and Patrick, and their great podcast, as well as Joel, Dana Reeves, and Shannon, who was on the show a couple episodes back. So these fine people put together this great gaming expo, and I gotta tell you, it's the one show that last year I think I claimed it had the vibe. And Preston asked me at some point, how was the show? What did you think? Last year you said we had the vibe. Do we have the vibe? And yeah, they do. This is like the friendly show. Now, that being said, I did almost get in some sort of altercation, which we'll talk about later, I suppose. And closest I've been to an actual fight in a long time. But that's all right. It was a misunderstanding of sorts, really. But that being said, the highlight of this show for me was not the struggle and pain of missing qualifying in both the classics and the main tournaments, in the Papa sanctioned tournaments. It was the main topic for me of this great seminar filled, game filled weekend was not doing a fun sit down interview with crazy Mr. Ben Heck, my partner at Mad Roll and Pinball. It was not getting to do a pretty in-depth discussion on the history and the present and the now and the future of the P3 and the multimorphic platform with Jerry Stellenberg. It was not getting to really play Stern's Kiss Pinball at length. It was not any of those things. The highlight of this weekend was certainly not the 2 moon pies I ate. Can you believe I did that? I can't believe I did that. I kept coming into this room, and there they are, sitting there in the chocolatey, marshmallowy, graham crackery goodness, and I ate them both. No, that was not the highlight of this weekend is just, it's the people. It's so cliched. It's so like ABC sitcom 1992, but it's really the people. I had a great time spending my weekend with people who I have met through either pinball directly or this podcast about pinball. And I really want to just thank all of those people, whether it was Kevin and Sunshine, whether it was Adam and Chris, whether it was Preston and Patrick, David, some of the other great people I got to hang out with, Gene X Wong, a lot of people. Brian and Amanda, hosting a tournament. A lot of people. Great time. I really had a great time. Bob Matthews. Great time. Derek Fugate. Is it Fugate? Is that how you say the last name? I don't know. Derek, fantastic conversation about his way to play Addams Family tonight. Whoever it was, I had a really great time hanging out with you. The social aspect of pinball is sometimes lost on me as I play my games in my home by myself, and I'm a tiny bit antisocial at times and sort of have to, come out of that a little bit. And pinball is a great way to do it. Let's kind of go through the weekend for me, just so if you don't go to shows or you haven't been to a show like this, maybe I can give you a little bit of insight as to my experience, what I did, and I'll try and touch on all the topics I can here, because there are definitely some, I don't know if they're updates or just stories or things we should talk about as far as games. We saw a much further along Python's Pinball Circus on display and flipping and playing at this show, which I got to play this evening, which was very cool and starting to really take form, take shape, if you will. So Circus Maximus is making progress. We saw Wonelli on display and getting lots of great reviews. Marco Specialties had their big booth with lots of KISS pinball machines and WrestleMania and Walking Dead. So the modern Stern stuff was here. There's some really cool old games on display and a Genesis like you've never seen before. So we'll see what takes best in show here at this show. But I got in Friday and had on my mind Ben Heck. Ben Heck was on my mind because I was hosting a seminar called Seeing Ghosts, and it was to cover America's Most Haunted and sort of the development and how we got to where we were. These seminars were for the live crowd, and I, unless I'm sort of doing a live Coast2Coast Pinball, where it's really more about my show and doing my show on stage, I don't feel like I should go record these seminars and then put them out on the show, unless I ask or whatnot. And I kind of didn't ask, so I just let it go. And Ben's been on the show. Ben and Charlie have come on. I think America's Most Haunted has been pretty well documented here on the show. Plus, you can't buy one anyway. So I didn't know that I needed to kind of, go through recording me and Ben talking for an hour. I screwed up. I should have recorded it because it was awesome. Ben's hilarious. Martin from pinballnews.com, luckily, I believe, recorded all of the seminars and will be releasing the audio before this weekend's out. So if you're listening to this and you're sick of me talking about moon pies, turn me off and go listen to the seminar audio because there's some good stuff. But just to let you in on a few things, Ben Heck did multiple impressions of multiple different pinball designers, such as his great Steve Ritchie impression and his great John Papaduke impression. So it was a lot of fun. Ben was serious at times. Talked about the seriousness of designing America's Most Haunted, the ups and downs, and would they ever have success with it. He was very candid about being burned out on pinball and wanting to maybe not be the lead programmer dots guy and everything on the next game, on the Rob Zombie game, and they've got someone else to do that. But also he's very much still a part of Team Spooky and was going to be there to sort of oversee some of that and help out and make sure things go as smoothly as they can. But it was cool getting to hear stories about how America's Most Haunted came to be. That game is still having a moment because a lot of people are just getting that game. That game was in the tournament this weekend. It was front and center in the Papa Circuit event, and I think I put up a top 20 score on it, which I guess I should because I own the game. But that was a lot of fun. Ben got applause a couple times throughout the seminar, I think. People really love him. He is a celebrity of some order, I guess in the geekdom, pinballdom, videodom world. Ben is definitely something else. So that was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed that. Spent the balance of Friday night making loops through the two big free play game rooms that were more for like arcade and pinball, obviously, here at the Southern Fried Game Room Expo. And I felt, and this is unverified and purely off instinct, just by a feel thing, I felt there were slightly fewer pinball machines set up on free play this year, and maybe a few more video games. I could be wrong on that. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure. It just felt like there's a little less. Now, they did move the tournament. The Papa tournament was moved into its own separate room, and it was not on one of the main floors, which changed the layout quite a bit and maybe is just skewing my perspectives and my memory from last year. But it seemed that way. Lots of good games, though. Games in for the most part in pretty good shape. A lot of the games I played were, clearly well taken care of from the collections that they came from. And I'll try and go through my phone. I tried to take pictures of some of the oddities and cool things I wanted to mention here on the show, so we'll get to that in a little bit. Spent a lot of time in the tournament. I have a flight tomorrow, Sunday morning, right about the same time as the main tournament, the modern tournament, if you will. Finals take place, but I have a little leeway and thought if I somehow qualify for the main tournament, I will move my flight back to later on Sunday. Well, I'm not moving my flight back. That's okay. So I was focusing mostly on classics and had a really good time in classics. Games like Jack's Open. What do we have? Harlem Globetrotters, which just destroyed me all weekend. Flash Gordon, which I just couldn't get going on at all. Atlantis, I had a good score on Atlantis. Others. There were other games in there. I'm missing a few right now. Countdown was one of them. Jumping Jack. So basically your best 4 scores out of 6 games would count. And I couldn't quite get the big score on any of the games. I had a lot of kind of middling scores. It was a lot of fun. There's some good players here. We had some top 100 players here for sure. And that was a lot of fun getting to watch some of them play. The modern division, if you're curious what was in there, I'd already told you it was America's Most Haunted. There was a Kiss in there that I believe Lonnie from Stern was actually updating code as the tournament was going, putting new code in it. And there's a bit going on in that game. Everyone always says, "Oh, there's no code yet." There's stuff going on. There's a couple, maybe 2 or 3 different multi-balls going on. There's certainly Demon Multi-Ball, which is the one where you're locking under Gene's mouth, which a lot of us were definitely going for. There's a Star Child multi-ball, or I think it's called Love Gun multi-ball, actually. And then somebody, I think, said they got a Kiss Army multi-ball, which I did not see, but I heard somebody say that. Other games in the main banquet: Fathom. There was Addams Family, Pirates of the Caribbean, and some others. So you can look up all the results online if you're interested in that sort of thing. A lot of fun. I love the pressure of playing in tournaments. 3 entries for $10. That is not cheap pinball. So you have to, commit some money to these things, or play really good, or just, enjoy a game or two and have some fun. So, had a lot of fun. I had a blast kind of hanging with Adam McKinney and Chris Baszler, who, if you want to go look up their IFPA rankings, are very, very highly ranked in the world compared to someone like me. And, both guys, when I play a game with these guys, we were playing Kiss out in the hallway on the little Kiss tournament game. They just make shots. I know that they understand the games. They've played a lot of pinball in their lifetimes, and it's great hearing them talk about the games they've played. And they're kind of two opposite guys in a way. If you've met Adam will tell you he only owns 1 pinball machine. I think he said he only ever owned 1 pinball machine, but he's played a lot of location pinball. He was talking to me tonight about getting to Valinor on Lord of the Rings on location and beating the Simpsons Pinball Party, finishing it, so to speak. On location. So this guy's played a lot of pinball on location. And Chris has one of the coolest collections I've ever heard of. I'll just leave it at that. A lot of good games. Definitely someone who's not afraid to support new games when they come out. And both guys play very well. And I was very appreciative of them kind of hanging with me and giving me tips. I mean, oh my gosh, you'd be a fool not to try and make acquaintances with players better than you, who understand the games better than you do, and try and figure out, sometimes I know what to shoot for. Let's take Avatar. I was playing Avatar, and I watched the Bo and Karen's Papa tutorial video about Avatar, so I knew what I should be doing. I should be trying to, start Link multi-ball and stack that with the Amp-Suit multi-ball and double the playfield scoring with the side targets on the left side. I know what I'm supposed to do. But I wasn't able to do it. I think my best score as of last night on Avatar was under 10 million, pretty poor. And when I told the guys that at lunch, they said, "Well, are you backhanding the link shot with the left flipper?" And I'm like, oh yeah, that. And it just instantly changed the whole way I was looking at the game, because the angle just looks a little odd, but when you actually do it and in practice, it's not that hard. And it totally opened that game up for me, and I put up a much better score because of it. So that was good stuff. I really appreciated hanging with those guys. They made my tournament experience here in Atlanta much better, so appreciate it. Gene X Wong from the NorCal, as we call it, was out here in Atlanta enjoying the Southern Front Gamer Expo, and he's tireless. He's scorekeeping, he's playing, he's taking photos. He's really a great ambassador of pinball, and also just a good dude and fun to chat with and talk strategies with, because I think Gene and I are sort of in like the same kind of skill area. I would say that Gene probably gets out and plays more on location and plays different games, and certainly when I watch him play, I can tell his skill set's a little more varied than mine, and maybe his knowledge on some of these games. But I kind of look at Gene as a peer of mine, and as our tournament pinball journey that we've both embarked on some level, if I get all philosophical on it for a second. So I enjoyed that a lot. A lot of great players, a lot of fun. I was watching Sanjay Shah play tonight, and I was watching him play Harlem Globetrotters earlier, and he plays very different than I play. And there's lots of ways to skin a cat, as they say. And I was watching Sanjay play, and he's very animated when he plays. Kind of does a dance in a lot of ways. But what I liked about his play, which I tried to sort of channel a little bit of, is he's very patient with his flippers. He is not afraid, and his judgment is really good on letting balls just simply, bounce pass over. Don't flip. It's the easiest move in the book. Don't flip. Let the ball hit. And I really had a good time watching him and then following him on games and trying to do that, although he does it much better than I do. So the tournament was a blast. Had a good time. I was, at a lot of points sitting right on the cut line in classics and just kept trying so hard. But until you've experienced a big tournament, you don't know the feeling of, getting into that last hour of qualifying where some people need 1 to 10 points, score enough to rank, their score to rank up and get the points to get them into qualifying. And then there's also the group of people who are just above the cut line who are trying to defend. And those people can't lose 1 to 10 points. And everyone's sort of jumping back in line and playing games. And it's sort of a frenzy. I will touch on this because it came up from a few people, including I talked to Patrick and Preston, who were very interested in how things ran in the tournament area. The tournament was in basically a square room, and the games were around 3 of the edges. So when you walked in, there were games on the 2 side walls and the far-facing wall, and then there was a group of chairs in the middle, and then registration and whatnot was on the other wall. And when there weren't a lot of people in the room, it was great, no problem, right? But when it got busy, and I will tell you, Southern Front Gaming Expo this weekend was busy on Saturday. There were a lot of families, lots of kids. And I think one thing that is natural for you to do at this sort of show, where they had the 2 main big, ballrooms with all the games set on free play, and then there were lots of other kind of small, quote, meeting rooms in a hotel that had all sorts of different setups in there, whether it was, big screen console gaming or old school retro gaming, all sorts of things like that. And I think a lot of people just viewed the tournament room as just another kind of stop on the, got to check off. We paid our money to be here. We're going to see it all. We're going to go through and see it all. And one of the issues that I noticed happening and that was sort of becoming apparent today as the crowds got bigger, there's certain people keeping score, and there's certain people kind of overseeing the tournament. That's not nearly enough to watch everybody at all time, and there's people in line to play games. Well, there was a certain percentage of people who would just simply walk into the tournament room and say, oh, hey, cool, Flash Gordon. I haven't played this game in years, and just start playing. And then, they're not in the tournament. And that, you don't want people playing the games that aren't in the tournament, putting undue plays on them. Possibly, you could have a situation where people are free practicing on a game, and it's just taking up spots for people who are paying to play these games. So that became a bit of an issue. I saw multiple people sort of, being asked, hey, are you in this tournament? And then the conversation quickly was like, what tournament? So a little bit of boundary issues just based on the way the room was set up. And then, I referenced this earlier, and I shouldn't even tell this story, but I guess I will, because here we are. So I was in line waiting for a game, and I was watching a couple different players play. Everybody's names will be anonymous here. And a family of 3, father and mother and their young child, I would guess somewhere in like the 6, 7, or 8-year-old range, came in. And the kid ran up in between two players. And I had just seen a situation where a media member with a camera had gotten in a tournament player's face, like really, really up close with the camera in like the player's face. And the player cradled up and like looked at the guy and said, "You do realize I'm in a tournament right now?" And the camera guy scurried off, like not realizing, because the camera guy was just probably there getting some shots and thought it was all just fun and free play, and was right in a guy's face who just paid $3 to play a game of pinball. So this kid runs up and kind of reaches up to grab sort of both people, like both hands kind of came up, and I just quickly stepped forward and actually looked at the parents and said, hey, this is a tournament, like, grab him, and waved him back. And the dad was like, whoa, and dad grabbed his kid, whatever, all good. And I felt bad that I had sort of snapped and been like that, because I'm like, hey, I'm not the boss. But I said, hey, sorry, but everyone here just paid $3 to play these games. A lot of stress, and it was right before the end of qualifying in classics too. There was like 40 minutes left. I said everyone's really stressed, and I thought that was it, right? I thought that was it. That was not it, because the lady said to me, "Yeah, that's great, but don't touch my kid." And I was like, like the record scratching noise that if I had the time and energy I'd put into the show right now, but I'm not going to. The record scratching noise sort of just through my head of like, whoa, I didn't touch your kid. I didn't come within 2 feet of your kid. And so, I could have just shut up and nodded and let her go. But in my head, I'm like, she just said out loud, I touched her kid. I didn't touch her kid. So I said to her in a tone, hey, I didn't touch your kid. Don't say that I touched your kid. And then she said something to the effect of, yes, you did. And I said, no, I did not touch your kid, and you should watch where he goes. Now, I didn't realize this at the time. The kid knew one of the 2 players and just saw someone he knew and ran up to him. I don't know this, right? I don't know. And I felt a little bit bad about that. But then the father sees me, Mr. Nice Guy, Nate Shivers, saying something mean to his wife, and did what most men in the United States probably would do, and said, hey man, don't talk to my wife like that. Don't disrespect my wife, I think was what he actually said, like it was a movie. And I said, hey man, don't let your wife say that I touched your kid when I didn't touch your kid. I did not touch your kid. He goes, well, she said you did. And I'm like, I did not touch your kid. And he goes, well, why don't we call the police? And then I laughed. I laughed at that. Thought that was really funny. I said, please call the police so that they can tell you to watch your kid. And Chris Baszler was being a good friend of mine and grabbed me and walked me away and said, dude, let it go. Let it go. So I let it go eventually, but we did have quite the moment there where I'm like, really? And he was like puffing his chest up to me and everything. It was, I'm not completely innocent of it. I could have swallowed it and walked away, but I never touched the kid. And that really, really bothered me. It was a weird moment of just visceral, like, dude, I never touched your child. How dare you insinuate that I did something like that? Because kids are, you don't want to touch kids. They're gross. They have germs, and you might catch something. I'm not touching some person's kid. So anyway, I don't even know what that has to do with anything other than tournaments need to put down tape or boundaries or barriers. We need better control of that. And that's it wasn't just a problem today. I've seen it at other tournaments. Space is an issue. You get a lot of people in your tournament, which you want, and everyone gets crowded in. That all being said, and please don't feel like I'm complaining about this tournament, because overall the tournament was very, very smoothly run, very good. They had ample scorekeepers who were trying their best to get around. One of the friendliest groups of scorekeepers, honestly, I've actually ever encountered at one of these. Once they were all sort of dialed in and knew the system, they were getting you added back into games quickly. Things were moving. I think the longest line on any game at any point was later in the day tonight, when people were only qualifying on mains and Classics was already done. The line for Kiss got really long because scores weren't all that high on Kiss, and I think a lot of people viewed that as a game they could move up on because nobody knew the rules at first, and so everyone was kind of on Kiss. And quite honestly, some of the games had different rubber on them. Some of them were, I think, different varying versions of like the Titan competition rings and super bands and different types of materials. So a lot of the games were, by no means would I say they didn't play good, because actually all the games played pretty good, but there were just some variance there that some people I could hear talking about, like, oh, that one's hard to control or this or that. Kiss was sort of predictable in what the ball was going to do. Like, I was having just such a problem with fishtails tonight. I was trying so hard to hit the right orbit shot on fishtails, and I just bricked that shot over and over and over again. I was trying so hard to hit the lock ball shot on fishtails from the left flipper, and I just couldn't do it. I don't know what it was, if there's some weird give in the flipper, if I just am that bad, which that's very likely the case. But I was having a really tough time on fishtails, whereas I think when a lot of people got on Kiss, it was like, oh yeah, okay, perfect, brand new shiny game right out of the box. So there's a long line on that, and obviously people just want to play it too. So that line got a little long. Other than that, I often got to play the same game 2 or 3 times in a row, which when you're jumping around between games can be the best thing in the world to do, especially if you get a game like Fathom where it just feels completely different than every other game in the room and has some weird angles and the ball does some odd things. You know, I think I played a game of Fathom that I literally scored 42,000 points, and that was the warm-up game. Like, literally the next time I pressed the button, right after that, with no break, I scored whatever my Fathom score ended up being, like 680,000 or whatever it was, just because I kind of got the feel for it. So it was a fun tournament, a lot of fun. I really wanted to make the finals in one of those. But you know what? I need to play better pinball. That's all there is to it. So we need an interlude to this show, because I've just talked for 26 minutes. So interlude time on Coast to Coast Pinball, episode 174. Back with more in just what will seem to you like seconds. So as I took my little interlude, which consisted of me getting up, walking around in one circle, eating a few cashews, and sitting back down, starting again, I looked at my phone, and it had 2 updates, both relevant to pinball. Update number 1 was the Pinball Arcade. It had an update today with Roadshow being the new table to download. And Roadshow is not a game that I know the rules to all that well. So it's like, yeah, cool, I can learn all the rules too. I also never see that game out anywhere. Like, I never see Roadshow anywhere. I don't think I've ever seen one in a tournament. So I'm not like in a big super giant hurry to download Roadshow and have that music playing into headphones while I play it. But cool one for them to do. It'll be interesting to see how that one plays, because there's a lot going on in Roadshow for sure. And before I tangent to something else dealing with that, the other one was the new Pinheads Pinball Podcast is in my MP3 catcher here. So they have episode 14 of the Pinheads Pinball Podcast, our friends from Down Under. So check that out, everybody. Speaking of virtual pinball, and kind of speaking of Farsight and the Pinball Arcade specifically, I still get a lot of page hits on my website from the virtual pinball forums, which is like the forums for the people who are really into, Farsight and virtual pinball. They have I think a thread running on all the different pinball podcasts that they've been nice enough to have me linked in there for a long time. So when I look at like top referral pages to Coast Pinball, in the top 5 or 6 pages is always the virtual pinball forums. So thank you guys, appreciate that. But what I was going to say here is, during the seminar I did with Ben Heck today, the idea came up, and I don't remember if I brought it up or Ben brought it up or if it was a question from the audience. Somebody brought up the fact that Farsight should do a America's Most Haunted. Actually, I think somebody just brought up the fact that it should be done in virtual pinball in general, and then I said it should be Farsight, because I think it would be very, very cool for Farsight to do America's Most Haunted. I think it'd be a great way for Spooky Pinball to, make a little money too. I mean, I'm sure they would get some sort of cut of that. I just like to see, the good guys succeed and make some cash. But when a game's limited to just 150, what a cool way to sort of let everybody have their America's Most Haunted experience and hear all those crazy call-outs and all the fun that game is. So I think that is, I'm going to just say it's my idea because it's my show and there's nobody here to argue with me. That's one of the better ideas I've had recently. Now, Ben Heck did say that he would, I think he wasn't thinking too clearly here about like monetizing this, because he's like, sure, if somebody wants to do a virtual version of it, I'll send them all the files. And I'm like, kneeing him like, no, dude, sell them all the files. So, I think that the odds of that happening are pretty likely, because, America's Most Haunted's going to go down in history. It may not go down as like the greatest game ever built, But it's certainly a landmark in the revolution of the independent build, as some of those companies have obviously crashed and burned and, taken people's money and done nothing with it. And that, boy, I got to tell you, that was still a big topic of conversation here at this show. And so many people asking me. So I got this one a lot. So, man, off the record, not on the show, but like, what's the real story with J-Pop? And I'm just like, I can't tell you the real story of J-Pop because I don't know the real story of J-Pop. And then I turned and like laughed at them for asking a question like that. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't know much that was like not said on the show or isn't written in a Pinside thread, really. I have some thoughts on it, but I've given you most of them here. But I did have a lot of people kind of ask me, like, so what else? What else is going on? And everyone wants to know. And there are people I was talking to today that lost money on this deal, that had money sent to J-Pop, and it's tough. It's a tough situation. So it's good for these shows to sort of bring back the good and the light and the positive, and a lot of fun. I did the session with Jerry Stellenberg and P3 and Multimorphic today. And, we didn't have the game in the room. We didn't have any photos of the game. We just really did basically like a live podcast. It would be like a live phone conversation where Jerry and I just kind of talked about how he got to where he is. And it's an interesting story because, Jerry has an engineering background. And I say that, and then I start thinking, well, wait a minute, is it more of a tech background? Jerry's very smart. Jerry knows how to build things. And, he came up with this idea of tracking the ball on a display, and it evolved, and then it was a game with a 27-inch screen, and then a 30-inch screen, now a bigger screen, and then, hey, let's float the flippers as well as the slingshots above the playfield. So the P3 platform in Lexi Lightspeed has really evolved, and I played it again today, and he told me right as I started, he said, it's not going to be much different than from Texas, and it wasn't much different. The rubbers might have been worn out a little bit more, but that's because everyone's playing the thing. But I would say that it's an interesting story because whatever I think about, or you think about, good or bad, and I have a lot of good things to say about the multimorphic system and the future that it could hold for that style and version and new reimagination, if you will, of pinball. Whatever you think, at the heart of it, you have a guy who is basically, he put his career and his professional life on hold to design this product that he feels very passionately about, and that at one point, and I didn't know this part of the story, and he told the crowd today, at one point some family members, I believe he said an aunt and an uncle, came and saw the P3 and gave him his first and really only large influx of cash to get this project going. And it's a testament to what, and yes, he did not do this alone. I by no means want to discount the hard work of his team, but he's definitely, the heart of the project and the man that is, driving the bus, as it would be. Amazing how much you can get done if you really want to. And, people have paid him for some of these games. For a period of time, he took pre-order money on Lexi Lightspeed and Cosmic Kart Racing and Multimorphic's P3. And then he turned it off, and he said, I don't want to do that anymore, because he feels very convicted about, he doesn't want to design the game with other people's money. I think he's okay building the game, building your game with your money, that's one thing, but he doesn't want to design the game with your money. And he went out of the way to say that, and I think it really rings, loud and clear to me. It's amazing what one person can do. And what they're doing, it is completely out of the box, and yet it's not. It's still a pinball machine. It still spits a pinball out, and you have two flippers and targets, and go to town. Try not to drain, right? Isn't that what we're all doing? But it's turned it on its head. You've got this video screen and all this stuff, and I hope everybody that's really into sort of, the future, and we had somebody ask a question tonight on the third panel I was a part of that I'll get to in a second, that just said, why should we stick in 1991? Kind of referencing the idea that pinball hasn't really made big leaps forward. Well, the P3 represents a giant leap forward. I think the question, and this haunts me a little bit, is how many people today in 2015 are willing to make that jump with multimorphic? And, you can question, is the art where we want it? Is the game where we want it? Dennis Nordman designed the game. The flippers feel awfully good now. There's a lot going for this game. Why are people not clamoring and talking more about it? It's interesting. I saw his sign-up sheet. He had a list of put me on the list to talk about this in the future. There's a lot of names on it. A lot of people, signed up, said, yes, tell me about it. And, Jerry's spending a lot of money to go to these shows to show this game off. And, check it out. Definitely check it out. But it's going to be interesting to see, this thing's evolved a lot. Does it evolve more? Does it change even more? I can't wait to see where it goes. I'm very interested. There's a lot to it. Martin from Pinball News, again, I think did record that entire seminar, and that should be on the pinballnews.com in the next day or two. So be on the lookout for that. And we go pretty deep on the product there, so check that out. The third panel that I took part on tonight was called Podcasting After Dark. And we did this last year here. Patrick and Preston were kind enough to invite me onto this, and it was a panel of podcasters. Everybody on the panel hosts a podcast. And it was Patrick and Preston from the Game Room Junkies, myself from Coast2Coast Pinball, which you're listening to right now, and then a couple other guys. One guy's name was John, and I am sort of blanking on the fifth gentleman's name. I believe his name was Adam. And those two guys hosted more video game-centric podcasts. I think one of them was sort of pop culture and video games and some pinball. And then one was mostly like retro gaming. And it was Adam, I believe, because his name was 8-Bit Adam. And we kind of talked about the show, what we saw. I called out Kiss as one of the highlights. I thought that if you were at the show, there was a lot of people in Kiss t-shirts. I saw Kiss face paint and cosplay. I saw Kiss shoes, like the Vans with the Kiss on them. Kiss has struck a chord with some people, if you would. You see what I did there? Struck a chord. Get it? There was that thread on Pinside that said, will Kiss be the third week seller in a row? No. I don't know who started that thread, but you are not correct. Kiss will not be the third week seller. People are into Kiss. I saw young and old enjoying Kiss. Doesn't hurt that the game looks beautiful. Looks awesome. But my takeaway from the pinball side of things, what's the standout moment from the show that I saw, was Kiss. And in person, it looks even better than the photos. It's shiny, it's bright, it's loud. The Gene Simmons call-outs are pretty cool, but he talks really deep. Like, when you get a tilt warning, he goes, "Don't shake the machine." Really low like that is kind of cool. And the fonts that Stern has used in the design ideas, and I don't know if this is all Kevin O'Connor or who exactly picked that, but the fonts and then the little logos are then replicated up on the DMD. It all just fits really good. It is a great package. Okay? We don't know where the game's going to end up as far as, rules and code, but I'm telling you, after playing the thing, 12, 15 times this weekend, Kiss Pinball is a great package. It has very difficult shots, shots that are harder than I thought they would be. The Star Child shot, that's kind of a tight, difficult shot. The right ramp is very steep. Not a easy shot by any means, unless you're Joshua Henderson, who I watched just kill that ramp like it was nothing. The spinner's cool. The spinner's got a little red flashing light by it. The sound is really good. Stern's sound, I think, is a little underrated at times. They're really good at what they do with their sound. So I'm just telling you right now, I'm calling it. Calling it not live on June 20th, Saturday night. Stern has A+ hit, probably one of their classic modern games in Kiss Pinball. I can't see that it's not. I just can't see that it's not. The ball lock thing is going to be one of those. It's very much like Whitewater. If you think about Whitewater, to light the locks, you have to hit these two little stand-up targets, and they're a little treacherous, but they're way down the playfield. the lock targets on this game are halfway underneath the Gene Simmons head, and I'm going to give you all a little piece of strategy. And I know when you think of high level playing strategy, you think of me, but you don't need to be Bowen Currens to tell you this. Don't plunge hard. Light plunge on Kiss so the ball does not go around into the pop bumpers. Light plunge and use that ball save time to start trying to light those locks. You're welcome. Thank you. You're welcome. But that is a strategy I had a little bit of success with. I have other problems like aiming that gives me issues, but that's cool. I did get some just straight up nasty right drains from the spinning disc underneath the demon head. Absolutely happened to me a few times. I said the spinner's great. The center ramp's a very fun shot. Feels good. There's lots of shots that feel good. The Star Child thing, I played three different Kiss machines actually this weekend. I felt that there was varying times the ball spent up in that Star Child playfield on the three different machines. So we'll have to see how that sort of starts playing out as we get the game going. But the side targets seem to be playing integral parts of the game. There's some already good rules going on there, so I'm really excited, and I just have this weird feeling at some point in my future there'll be a Kiss game in my house. So that was my take on Kiss. I mentioned again Pinball Circus. That was a highlight. Every time I walked by P3 and Lexi Lightspeed and Circus Maximus with Pinball Circus, there was just people playing it. Just people mobbed around it. Same way with Wonelli and same way with the Marco specialty booths with all the new CERN games. This is really a fun show. It's really a good showcase for your product. I would hope that next year we see, a Rob Zombie game on the floor here. We see a Big Lebowski game on the floor. I think this is quickly turning into the show for the southeastern corner of the country. I mean, it already is. Let's be real. They have a Papa Circuit Tour stop. They have the most organized show I think I've seen. And that's not a slight on anybody else, but I'm just saying that this show is organized. Down to, the name badges have your name and have a little gold star if you're allowed into this thing, and this, and I have my little basket of goodies they gave me. It just ran really smoothly. My hat is off to everyone involved with Southern Fried Gamer Expo. There's a lot more I could talk about. I'll probably get into some of the other games I saw on a future episode, maybe do some 5 fast thoughts, because there was some really just awesome games here. But I think I gotta go to bed. That's episode 174 of Coast to Coast Pinball. If you need the wrap up here, it's that there's some really cool people in pinball, and you need to get out here and meet them and just introduce yourself. People are friendly, and I think a lot of people are out looking for the same. So enjoy yourselves, play more pinball. We will talk to you again very soon. Take care.